assistant professor at the Center for International Politics, organization in disarmament at the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Critical geopolitics is a post-modernist take or post-structuralist take on geopolitics, and which has borrowed heavily from critical theory. And they invoke a certain kind of discursive analysis borrowed from Michel Foucault, and they invoke this analysis to understand what goes on behind the framing of geopolitical narrations. This is their main project, and within that they have 5 main tenets of critical geopolitics. That is, critical geopolitics is much more. It's a much broader cultural phenomenon, and it is a set of material and representational practices of the states. And so, for example, in the case of BRICS, it would be understood that BRICS is just not a state-centric idea, but it has more deep roots in the culture of globalization. And the second tenet is that there is a plurality of space, and that there would be multiplicity of constructions of space. So there are different possible constructions of space on which through those conceptions of space we draw our boundaries, and by drawing these boundaries we distinguish what is us and what is them. And these boundary drawing practices are the object of analysis in critical geopolitics. Third tenet is that geopolitics is not a singularity but a plurality. So this is a very horizontal conception of geopolitics, rather than being only state-centric. And one more project of critical geopolitics is that they also want to situate critical geopolitics out of the state, or at avenues other than the state. So geopolitics happens in the critical geopolitics terminology at 3 levels, that is popular geopolitics, formal geopolitics, and practical geopolitics. And the popular geopolitics and formal geopolitics are, maybe they are related to the state, but they are not the state as such. The fourth tenet is that that is very, very, again, questioning the idea of the state, ideas of the state, that the practice of studying geopolitics can never be politically neutral. So they argue that even if the observer is trying to be neutral, or if he is trying to be the most objective, he cannot be, because he is situated in certain circumstances, and those circumstances impinge upon his ideas, and they are reflected in his geopolitics, or his kind of geopolitics. And the last and the final tenet is that geopolitics is a situated reasoning, which has its socio-spatial and techno-territorial circumstances, which have a bearing on how we think. Again, that relates to the time and space dilemma, that we are conditioned by our times and also by our space. It is very much true that the traditional geopolitical thinkers also had a vision for the future, and in that vision they were able to elaborate that, for example, in Mackinder's works you will find that he indicates that China and India are going to be powers in another 50 years. So he was saying that in 1904, but after 100 years they have some relevance in the international system. Similarly, Alfred Thayer Mahan and Spikeman also said something about the same about either in China, India, or Asia in particular, and they postulated that they will be the powers in the future, collectively or singularly, but they did not specify that clearly. But they had a sense that they will be superpowers in the near future. Critical geopolitics, on the other hand, informs the study of BRICS in the following ways: that BRICS could be an alternative world vision, which deviates from the traditional world visions, which had which understood the world as a whole, which pictured the world as a whole, and also carved out spaces which were spaces of danger and spaces of chaos from the spaces in which these authors were living in. But critical geopolitics says that BRICS could be an alternative vision of world vision, which does not privilege or does not categorize categorize spaces as dangers or favorable spaces, but they are just spaces, but there is an alternative vision from a different part of the world. Also, this discursive analysis can establish the relevance of BRICS, in the sense that if we look back into the history of discourses during the Cold War and after that, these discourses have always privileged certain kinds of notions about the world. The ideas about first, second and third world, then the global triad, developing world, developed world. These are all ideas created during the last 40 to 50 years. And now BRICS as a grouping block, there could be variations on it, but as a grouping they exhibit a certain understanding which says that there is some relevance for BRICS. Even if you follow the metaphors from the early times, from the last 30-40 years, there is a relevance for BRICS within critical geopolitics also. How do critical geopolitics inform BRICS countries' policies and politics? That's a very peculiar question, in the sense that it is very difficult to say very clearly at this point of time. But there could be relevance in terms of the involvement of society in the formation. The BRICS is already there, but if the involvement is even if it is coming from the state, it should be more from the society, more from the social perspective, from a cultural understanding and economic understanding of the BRICS. And this would be the future mainstay of the BRICS. That is how I understand it. As I have also said earlier, that the post-Western order is the realization or manifestation of the Western neoliberal ideologies. So there is a continuity there, and its main features, that is liberalization of trade and interdependence in the world economy. So these factors impinge a lot on how BRICS has been conceptualized, because the BRICS countries the emergence of these countries are a product of this project of liberalization and new world economy. And it is although an alternative version, but a group which exists because of the forces of globalization initiated initially by the West. In the beginning, they came from the West. And for the stakes, there are stakes involved, and that we have witnessed in the last 20-30 years for the BRICS, as they have been negotiating on the issues of environmental negotiations, when they debate the idea of common but differentiated responsibility, and at the trade negotiations, when they negotiate on the agricultural subsidies which the West provides to its farmers and the products which could inflow into the developing countries or the BRICS. So these are the issues which they are already putting their minds upon and have already spoken about in the various international fora. So there is a lot of stake for BRICS in all these issues. Globalization has the important tenets of globalization are liberalization of trade, foreign direct investment, exports and imports, flow of goods, that is flow of ideas. Communication revolution is one huge part of globalization, and information exchange which results from this communication revolution forms the whole gamut of images which we associate with globalization. Right? Within those images, you can see that through these images, certain conceptions of certain countries have arrived, and these images have also led us to believe that these countries have risen or arrived or they have emerged. So those notions have been coming from globalization. It is not that they have just come in isolation. It is important to understand that as these countries performed very well economically, which was a result of globalization. So in discursive understanding, these terms were the ones which were clearly specifying their emergence or arrival. With these categories were establishing that in literature, the emergence, arrival, and rise. And this is one of the major projects of critical geopolitics, to investigate the discourses behind these events or taxonomies, which are provided through media, to us through media and different state instruments. That is arrival, emergence, and rise. And these are all creations of the West. If you look at these terminologies, you will find terms like anchor countries coming from Germany and from a specific think tank in Germany. Similarly, emergence, rise are terms which have come from the West. Right? They have not come from, these countries themselves have never said that we have arisen or we have arrived. The West has said that. So, and this is the link with globalization for the BRICS. First, let me say that BRICS also has some linkages with the traditional definition of region, because though traditional definitions of region are about homogeneity in terms of some specific characteristics like culture, economy, politics, or some functions, but they also, and all these relationships, all these regions have a unifying aspect, and that holds true for BRICS as a group, because they also have a unifying aspect of that they have arrived on the international scene. That is the unifying strand which runs all through these these 5 countries, and also there is a link to the conceptions of grouping or block. As if you look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary of group, it says that it is a number of individuals assembled together or having some unifying relationship. That becomes a group. So BRICS has a unifying relationship, that is of the recent emergence and arrival on the international system, in the international arena. Also in the same vein, block is defined in the same dictionary as combination of persons, groups or nations forming a unit with a common interest or purpose. So BRICS have come together as a group, but what is the common interest of the BRICS? That still has to be clearly defined. And I think, as I pointed out earlier, they have been negotiating on certain aspects of international importance for the developing world, like the environmental negotiations and the trade negotiations. So I think these are the avenues which could be further explored and understood to understand BRICS.